Hey everyone, I'm Diana Davison, advocate for the falsely accused and wrongfully convicted. Now, I'm going over a recent Quillette article written by Brad Cran, which meticulously documents how false allegations were mobilized to destroy the life of Steven Galloway, former creative writing chair at the University of British Columbia. It's about 30 pages long, and each segment deserves attention. The same group of accusers is linked to other cases in universities and through the Canadian literature community, so there are many innocent men at risk from the very same people. Last video I focused on the horrible new sexual assault policies being forced on the universities by public pressure groups, despite cases like Galloway's showing the damage being done by false accusations. This time I want to look at how the allegations were mobilized. It began with one woman referred to as the main complainant, disclosing, as they call it, an accusation of sexual assault to UBC and to a former student named Chelsea Rooney, who became a sort of spokesperson for the main complainant. Rooney talked to members of the creative writing faculty about the complaint, adding that she could also produce 19 other accusers. Within days, select members of the faculty had a meeting at a private home where they decided to request that the dean suspend Galloway and remove him as department chair. This is faculty members who made this decision. The dean follows through. Stephen was suspended over email while out of the country, and two of those faculty members involved stepped in as co-chairs to take his place. UBC issued a public statement prior to investigation, and a memo was quickly sent out to students, faculty, and staff that indicated Galloway, in light of serious allegations, had been removed from campus as a safety risk. So, Phase 1, based on nothing but an audio recording of a vague apology left on voicemail combined with hearsay about other complainants which turned out to be non-existent, Steven Galloway was suspended and smeared as a serial rapist. At this point, there were only two people required, the main complainant and her advocate, Chelsea Rooney, combined with a growing number of people who wanted to believe. Phase 2 was to actually get the allegations. Rooney was given a letter to hand out with university letterhead to anyone she thought would be willing to make a complaint. The letter urged the recipients to make complaints, but the 19 alleged other sexual assault victims they were told about never materialized. Instead, they got a handful of minor complaints about rude or awkward behavior. Chelsea Rooney had also selected a media contact and encouraged complainants to reach out to a reporter. The claim that other victims existed served a few purposes. Number one, the power of numbers. Asserting a large number of victims intensifies both belief in the accusations and the desire to act quickly. Number two, the claim of other victims convinces other people to make a complaint in support of someone else. Number three, asserting other victims causes people to revisit their own memories of the accused person with new, false information, which causes them to revisit their past interactions and view them differently. Brad Cran's article quotes one former professor, Andreas Schroeder, saying, "What I've always been mystified by was that faculty were assured that 19 other women were coming forward with allegations, but it never happened." Over and over, we see single accusers contacting others, asking them if they've been abused by a person who then becomes a common enemy. Then they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. At some point, they get enough to form a small army of alleged victims, and most of the people in that merry band are simply trying to support the original person who they actually believe was truly hurt. And even when the original accuser is debunked, it doesn't matter anymore. Everyone's already adapted their memories to the new version of reality. They've rewritten their own memories of the person and can't go back. It's hard enough to adapt your memories once. Now, the added pressure is the guilt for having condemned an innocent man if they accept the new data was wrong. Sometimes, the main alleged victim actually believes her own story, even though it's false. With Steven Galloway's accuser, that's not even the case. She denied that they'd had a 2-year affair. The one thing that former Judge Mary Ellen Boyd, who conducted the investigation, found to be factual. The only thing she found to be factual when she concluded her report. Cran writes that MC, the main complainant, changed her story several times, including the year and the number of incidents alleged, but always refused to acknowledge the 2-year affair, even though Galloway had hundreds of pages of messages that he and the woman had exchanged throughout the 2-year relationship. Now, the one part left out of the early chain of events. Because of a secret 2-year affair, which hadn't been reported to the university, seeing how both he and the woman were cheating on their spouses, Steven Galloway lost his job, was labeled a rapist, and was thrown into a mental institution. On receiving the email regarding his suspension, Galloway was in Ohio giving a lecture and phoned his former friend Annabelle Lyon, who first hung up on him and then texted to call back. She put Galloway on speakerphone with 2 other people present. The trio denied knowing about the affair that he was even apologizing for, even though they'd heard the tape and participated in the decision to have him removed. They kept asking if he was suicidal. He asserted that he wasn't. He was just trying to catch a plane back home. During this conversation, according to the police report, Annabelle Lyon phoned police in Ohio and reported Galloway as a suicide risk, saying that he was manipulative and not to believe him. As a result, 2 officers attended his hotel room, handcuffed Galloway, took him to a psych ward, strip-searched him, and incarcerated him on what's called a pink slip. This all happened the night he was told about the accusation. Also, according to Cran's article, someone called the main complainant and told her not to sleep at home, as Galloway might show up in Toronto and try to kill her. So, that's what happens when citizens take the law into their own hands. This is what happened when the university decided to take on a sexual assault investigation themselves instead of leaving it up to police. Is there anyone who still thinks that universities should be taking on police work? As mentioned before, the 19 other accusers never materialized, and when Galloway finally had the opportunity to address the main complaint, it was determined to have been a lie. That didn't give Steven Galloway back his career. It didn't take away the traumatic experience of being locked up in a psych ward out of the country, and it didn't undo the rumors that he was a rapist. Indeed, some people online continue to insist that they can call him an alleged rapist. Shockingly, when the supporters of the accuser demand respect for the victims, in this case, they refuse to include Steven Galloway in this category. Fueled by one lie and ever-expanding gossip circles, an army of accusers was slowly built and expanded into a battalion of online champions who will not accept the findings of the esteemed former judge Mary Ellen Boyd. I'll put a link to the full article below, which is about 30 pages long, but you should read it all. It's the most accurate, fully detailed account of the sequence of events.